Hello and welcome to blog number 15. It's been a week focused on Rosie this week, and so what you're about to see, I think, though I haven't yet started editing, is largely around her Hobbit Hole. Her birthday was on Thursday? I don't even know what day of the week I am. The 13th, whatever day that was, and so I was focused very much on getting that finished. There were some other things that went on. I'm sure that this update will be leavened with a few other projects, but for now, in a break with my sometime tradition of ending my brew, or my videos with a brew, I will raise my ginormous cup of tea with a fresh cup in it, and we'll get to editing now, and we'll see you again at the end of the video. Everything's all dry, and everything's ready now for scenicking, which, as I've said, is the thing I've been most looking forward to. So I've been having a bit of a think, and I've been considering how I'm going to do this, and I have decided that I'm going to use modelling compound around the outside to build up so that it comes up to the edge of the trap. I forgot that word again. And then I'm actually not going to do the slabs, I'm going to do it with gravel. And I'll do grass around the outside, so I'll have a gravel kind of area here and up the steps, and then grass around the outside, but a thin layer of the modelling compound over the whole lot, just to kind of seal it off and smooth it around. So what I'm going to do, I have it here, my big pot. I'm going to make a small batch of that up and then smear it on. So I will do that with a little bit of music for you to while you're watching, and we'll get this step done. After feeling quite depressed is probably the wrong word, probably too strong a word, but quite upset about this, I'm back to it now, and I have made some more of the bricks, but I've done it right this time with a little bit of learning, or a lot of learning since the last attempt. And so what I'm going to try to do, this might not work at all, and I might be back to where I started from, but I'm going to attempt to trim down and glue on some sections where I want it. So I have my cutting ruler, and I have a sharp blade, and what I'm going to try to do is cut down, so it needs to be at least 6 centimeters really. So we're going to try and find a bit that's at least 6 centimeters long, which that bit is there. So I'm going to try and cut down there. There we are. How about that? Crumbles. Now this is very, very thin, this particular bit of plaster, so of air dry clay, so that's probably why it's not going to work very well. So let me try another bit. this may just be a bad idea, and I may need to do this completely again with the idea that was suggested to me, which is make it on the bits of the correct dimensions, and that probably is a better idea. However, that's worked okay, so now let's try and do another section here. I'm only going to do one of these on camera because it's very, very awkward standing like this trying to do this in shot, and just with multiple thin, multiple gentle slices. Cut there. Oh, that worked okay. There we are. So we've got a section now, and that is going to glue very nicely there. So we'll cut the bottom off. Find 6 centimeters. There we are. Cut there. Ha-ha! And then that, might need to have a little bit more than 6 cut. Let's do it to that brick. That is okay. There we are. Dunk! And that is perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I'll zoom that in a little bit for you so you can see. I'm going to go around the whole of the building and I'm going to stick them on, cut them out and stick them on like that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like when it is done. These have all been primed, as you can see, and are now ready for painting. And so what I'm going to be doing is first of all working on the wood, because that's a smaller section and I actually don't have much time this evening left to hobby, and so I thought I'd do a small thing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work on the wood section. The wood section is here, and then some of these bits of wood as well. And I have Vallejo Panzer Aces old wood number 310, which I'm going to make use of. So we'll give that a good shake, and then I'm going to paint this on quite brutally. I'm not going to be doing too much. I'll just reach my water, which I've left over on the other bench. There we are, that's better. I'm not going to be doing too much clever, because I will probably be putting some more washes and what have you. This is just going to be the first coat. I want to do these really nice, really nicely. I'm really liking the textures and the way that this has been put together, and I just think it looks great. So if we put that on there, and then I will do the rest of it. So very quickly. That was very quick, as you can see, but we've got a basic old wood base layer down on all the wood there, and I think that's the only wood that there is on this particular model. So what I'm going to do is have a look at the rest of it and pick out another colour, and I'll be back to do that. What I'm going to do now is use some of the Citadel shades, so the classics Agrax and Null Null. And I'm going to wash over the entirety of all the stone with those. This will give it a pre-shade, which I can then highlight up from, and it will also bring out all of the excellent textures that there are. So let's get that done. With the old wood on, what I'm now going to do is apply some Citadel Nile Oil across all of the stone, and I'll do this for all of the other sections but off camera because it'll be very boring watching me do this for all of them. And what I'll also do is put some Undergrass Earth Shade onto the wood. So first of all, I'll pop some music on and I will Nile Oil the stone. There we are. I remember the first time I ever used a wash and it blew my mind, and it still blows my mind just what a difference it makes. So now I'm going to have to do that for all the other sections with the Undergrass, not with the other Undergrass, sorry, with the Nile Oil, and I'll be back when I've done everything with the next stage. Next step is to make use of the wood grain, which is 70828, and I'm just going to paint this just in bits, almost as a wash again. I've watered it down, just over all of the wood, but just in bits, not all over the whole thing. Almost as a leopard spot idea, I'm thinking. There we are. Next I'm going to apply a patchy wash of the pale grey from Game Colour from Vallejo, which is 73202. So I've given it a good shake off camera because I haven't used this for a while, so I'm giving it a very good shake. I'm just putting it onto my dining plate palette, and I'm going to, as I say, patch this in a patchy manner. So not on every stone, but just on some. Actually going to water it down a little bit more, even though it comes out of the pot. There we are, a little bit more watered down than when it comes out of the pot. And what I'm also going to do is apply the same light grey wash to the wood. And I'm going to do that all over the wood because I want it to age. And as we know, old wood is grey. However, the underlying colours should still pretty much come through. Getting a really nice effect there. Gonna need a little bit more. Okay, with that done, I'm now going to make use of the green wash, which is 73205 from the same manufacturer and the same brand. Give that a good shake. And again, I'm going to apply this in a patchy manner to the stones. And when I've done this, I'll do this to all of the rest of the building. This is going to be done more in streaks though, because what you're doing here is making highlights of where maybe there's old leaks, or do it in the cracks like so. It's a very quick technique. I really like painting in washes. I don't often get the chance to. I need to get back to doing this more. Odd as it may sound, a dry brush with the green on the wood. And there you are. What I'll do is I will hold that up and zoom in. So let's focus and zoom in. And you can see there the kind of patchy effect on that wood. When it's dried it won't be quite so shiny. And then on the walls it's got a really nice aged effect. So what I'll do is I'll go and do that on the rest of the model, and I'll be back for the next stage. What I'm now going to do is apply the scenic paint over this Undergrass model, and then scatter sifted sand over the top as a base. So first of all, I have my paintbrush. I just use a rough terrain brush. I have a number of these that I use of different sizes, and they're very cheap brushes brought from the supermarket, I believe. This is the terrain paint, which I have a video for. As I say, I will link that in the description below. And as simple as what you do is, you can see that my brush was quite wet, which is what you want. Quite a wet brush. Paint the terrain paint on, like so, over everywhere you want it. On this, I want it over the entire model apart from the hatch. Don't paint too much at any one time, because otherwise it dries, particularly when it's going over the top of Luke's APS modelling compound. That does seem to like to pull moisture into it. So we'll do that. And we'll be very careful as we're going around the edge of the hatch. So that'll do for now. A little bit more moisture on it. And then, as simple as it is, get your sifted sand. Now this has gone through a very fine sieve, so it's not got any pebbles in it at all. It is just sand, and we're not being very scientific there, we just dump it on. So I'll zoom that in a bit so that you can see, and I'll carry on with the next section a little bit more zoomed in. That's how long you need to leave it for. What I'll do now is pick this up, empty it onto the paper below where it can then be recovered from, and you can see there that there's a little bit here which had dried. So we'll wet our brush again a little bit and put some more paint on there and drop a little bit more sand on it. And it is as simple as that. So if you do find that you've missed, it really isn't the end of the world. So let's carry on, putting more terrain paint. As I say, it does need to be quite wet, because what then happens is it soaks up with the sand, and then you get a really good bind with the PVA. So we'll carry on with this. I may come back into that little bit there with a slightly finer brush, but that's also fine, because once it's on, once the sand is on it, you can work very close to where you've worked in the past without any risk really whatsoever. There we are, I was able to get in there even with this big brush. Just like that. Wait a couple of seconds, not very long at all. Upend it, and there you are. Final section. See here again, it's dried a little bit before I got the sand down. This is why you need to add the sand. Maybe I've been doing this slightly in 2 big batches, but that's fine because it's so easy to fix those kind of missed areas. You literally add your sport paint and then throw some more sand on. I think I'm relatively happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is glue it all together. And that is going to be quite simple. Super glue. What I'll do is run a bead of super glue between each section, so I don't run out, which I am. Just got enough to do this one. But you've all used super glue, so I don't need to film this entire thing. So yeah, so I'll just do that one and then make sure that I line up the slot there so that it does the tumbling correctly. Set that on, and then I'll get another tube of super glue from my store and glue the other bits together, and then I'll leave that to go off, and then we're very nearly done on this build. It's been nice and quick. With the sand now dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some static grass, and the static grass I'm going to apply first of all is autumn static grass, 2mm from Luke's APS. So I have that already in my applicator here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fast tack glue to apply where I want it to go. I also have back here dead grass, which I'm also going to apply. So I'm not going to put this everywhere. I'm going to be a little bit more circumspect, and I'm going to attempt to make this look quite interesting. So let's get going. This week is the week in which I have finally finished these 3 buildings. I'm very pleased. So I thought I'd just do a very quick short to show you that this is actually completed. There are a couple of tiny things that I will still be doing, and when I do them I will bring them back and show you, but for now they're good enough for tabletop, they're good enough for me, and I want them off my table, and I'm fed up with them, and I'll come back to them in a month or 2 or 6 months or a year or whatever and do the final little bits. So yeah, the Sarissa buildings are done. Now is one of those nice serendipitous moments, which is good in this build because currently I'm delayed by things not arriving, when I actually have some things that I'd ordered before which is going to work really, really well for the Hobbit Hole. So let me show you what I've got. First of all, and this is really cool, I have some 28mm rabbits. I don't know if that's going to focus. I've got my focus point a bit odd on this side where my face is. Some 28mm rabbits, and I am going to use those as a little Easter egg. So I'm going to put a couple along the front where you better see them quite easily, but I'm also going to hide a few so that Rosie can go looking for them. And the other 2 things that I'm going to do, I have some 28mm sheep and some 28mm goats. So this corner over here is going to be a sheep field, and I'm going to put a couple of these sheep in. Unfortunately, none of them appear to have their heads down cropping, which is a shame. And then out of shot over here, I'm going to put a goat or 2. So that's going to really bring the whole thing to life and give me something to work on while I'm waiting for the rest of the stuff to dress the gardens and what have you to arrive, which is Now, probably not going to happen until after a birthday, which is just one of those things, but at least I have something to work on and it's going to look wicked. I will also be able to put the miniatures on in the very, very short term, in the very near future, because yeah, pretty much everything will be done around where they're going to go. So this is what I'm going to work on now. So I'll point the camera down and I will start clipping these off their sprues, off their bases, and sticking them onto some tongue depressors, and then get to painting. Right, let's get started on these. So I'll do the simple ones first. I'm going to have 1 sheep and 2 goats, I think. So let's get these sheep out of their little packs, grab one of these, and I'm going to leave it on the base. However, to glue it securely to a tongue depressor, I'm just going to need to clean up the bottom of it, as it has some little sprue joins still on from where it's been clipped off. And when I'm done painting it, I will cut it off of this little pudding base and stick it on without a base. So that can go on to a tongue depressor like that, and that will be nice and easy for me to paint. So what we do for this is we get PVA and we drop the model on. And that's that. When that's dried, that'll be nice and secure, definitely secure enough to paint. So we'll put that over there. Next, we'll get a couple of the goat models out. So let's see, do we have any? They're all the same pose. Now I'm starting to think about conversions. I think probably what that means is I'll just do 1 goat, because I don't have the time or the inclination really to do masses of conversions at this stage. And I can always do a conversion and drop it in, because this is going onto grass and that's it. It's not going into a, sorry, I was trying to get them back into the bag. It's not going into a complicated area. So if I wish to do a conversion in the future and stick it on, I certainly can. So we will do a dollop of PVA on this as well, and stick that goat on. Oh yeah. Okay, so that's those 2. Now we have the fun times, which is these teeny tiny rabbits. Oh, good, I thought that the bag was going to break them. So these really are little, and I think that I'm going to struggle to get them off their base, even when I do, when I've painted them. So I'm going to paint them on the base, including painting the base, and I'm going to do a couple per section of. So I'm going to do 4, I think, at this stage. I may do more, but for now, that'll be fine. So we'll quickly just make sure. You can probably see on the bottom of that, I don't know if that's going to focus, there's a little bit of metal sticking out, which is what I need to take off. So simply done with a file. Oh yeah. So slightly smaller amounts of PVA for this, because they're such tiny models and I don't want to overwhelm them. So a little bit of PVA there, and a little bit of PVA there, and there, and there. Oh, and a big dollop that fell out, but never mind, that can just be taken off from my finger. And we'll drop each of these little rabbits onto the tongue depressor, and we're golden. So they will be paintable as soon as they've dried. You can't really, you've got to be really careful to leave these for a good long time. It's not good enough to do the usual rushy when you're doing this technique, because if the PVA is not dry, then they'll fall off and you have to start all over again. And that is where haste is the enemy of speed. So there we are. So we've picked out the little animals that we're going to put on the diorama. So I will let that to dry, as I've just said, and I'll be back with this stage when they're dry. Probably now, won't be until Tuesday, because I'm not around for hobbying tomorrow, unfortunately. But that's going to be really cool. They're going to look really good on the diorama. I'm very pleased. You are looking at a very happy and very relieved beard. Today I had a large delivery and it contained a load of stuff, which means that I can probably hopefully finish the Hobbit Hole in time for Rosie's birthday, which is just the best thing, because I really thought that I'd made so many mistakes in ordering things and I wasn't going to be able to do it. So what I've got some tulips here for the garden. I have some lovely plant pots. Look at those from Gauge Master. I will attempt to remember to put links to all these items in the description below. I have some awesome cabbages and lettuces. They're very large, so I'll probably only be able to put a couple of those in. I have 2 flower pot planters, 2 red and 2 yellow, which are still in a little cardboard box. So I'll show them to you when I'm actually adding them to the box, to the item. I have some fantasy mushrooms. If you've watched the films, you'll know that hobbits love eating mushrooms, so I thought I'd get a couple of them. I have some pumpkins for the garden. I have, and this is really cool, I have some chickens, some teeny tiny chickens. So, yep, excited about that. And then those things from Serious Play, the chickens and the pumpkins, and then a bunch more flocky kind of static grass tufts to be put in the garden and etc. And also, last but not least, some stuff to some foliage scatter. Easy for me to say. I'm quite excited. I'm sorry, I'm jumbling my words, but I really thought that I was not going to be able to finish this, and I was going to have to do a give a present to Rosie that wasn't ready, and now it looks like it's going to be ready. So I now have a couple of days of heavy effort. This is Tuesday. Her birthday's on Thursday, so I have a couple of days of heavy effort ahead of me in the evenings to get this all done and dusted. But the first thing that I'm going to need to do is prime and paint up the little animals, which will now also include those chickens. So yeah, I will be inviting you along in this rush, and here's hoping that in 2 days' time I'm able to give this present to Rosie fully completed. I'm taking a couple of minutes away from my workday to get these primed, because if I'm on a big rush now, then if I can prime them now, then I'll be able to paint them earlier, maybe even this evening. So I'm going to go ahead with my surface primer in grey from Vallejo. Just got my plastic. Apologies for the tapping. We have builders in and they're knocking plaster off the wall, if you can hear that. Doing Rosie's bedroom. It's all about Rosie. So we'll put some primer on the palette, and I'm going to use my wide brush, and I'm going to apply that primer over all of these models. So I will turn the camera off, because you've seen people priming before, and next I'll be back when I'm doing something else. And so the great dressing up begins. I'll take the miniatures off, having mocked up roughly where they're going to stand, and I'm going to start to put on these tufts that I have, and also the vegetables and the plant pots that are actually just out of reach, just over in that direction up the bench. I'm not entirely sure how much of this I'm going to video. I'm going to leave the camera running while I do this now for about 10 minutes before lunch, before dinner. So I've got a few minutes, and I'm going to get as much as I can done this evening, because yeah, the rush is on. So I will pop some music on and we'll interject potentially with voiceover beard if I have anything to say, but for now I'm just going to crack on. Now we have to do something about these windows, because they're a little grey and a bit blotchy and they're not very good. However, I have been suggested an idea by Ben Bowles from Top Table Gaming, which I'm going to give a go on one of these windows, and if it works I'll do it on them all. What I've got here is some fly screen mesh, so mosquito netting basically, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to cut that out roughly to the same dimensions of the windows, and I've got the same cardboard tube as I used to make the windows, which is very useful. So I'm going to draw around that with my Sharpie and then try to cut it out with some scissors, as simple as that. So let's see if this works. It might work, it might not. It's worth a try. Obviously I'm doing the outside dimension of the window here, and I want to cut for the inside, so I'll be cutting about a little bit tighter than where the markings go. But there we are. So we've got a drawing around that, a rough idea, as I've said. What I'm going to do is just quickly reach up, get some scissors. So excuse me. And I'm going to use my little scissors, my little nail scissors that work so well for this path. And I'm going to attempt to cut this out. So once more, Beard Clipper tries something that he's never tried before and does it on camera, because Beard Clipper doesn't appear to learn. So we're going to cut around. There we are. So that's cut out. Then that will fit in nicely. This might work. BB might have been onto something. Wouldn't that be a shock? Sorry, mate. So let's get a little bit of PVA. And if this works, actually I have something before. If this works, then as I say, I'll do the other ones and then I'll get on with something else. His suggestion after this was that I stick this on, paint it like grey or whatever, and then dry brush the rest of it, so it just has a little bit of a glint. So so this kind of like shape looks like reflections of glass, and it does make a lot of sense. So I hope it works. I wish I'd dealt with this particular problem before and not left it when I'm in a bit of a hurry. And if this works, I might explore this even further in a future video. That has gone on okay, so good. So what I'll do now, I'll turn the camera off because that was probably quite boring. I'm going to cut out two more shapes the same size and stick them in, one here and one round the corner on the window on the end, and I'll be back when I come to the next step. But I do just want to say I am so pleased with that garden. It's looking amazing, and it's gonna blow your mind, the other items I've got to put on. I'm very excited about this evening and tomorrow evening getting this done. Onwards. With those windows done, I'm now turning my attention to dressing the rest of the build. And what I'm going to be doing is making some hedges that are going to go along the edge of this fence on both sides. So what I've done is I've got some rubberized horsehair, which you'll know from one of my Battle Games in Middle Earth videos. And I've cut it down to thin strips, and I'm going to be sticking it along the edge of that hedge. Just like that, or the fence even, just like that. So we've got one bit there, and we've got another bit there. Now I'm using tacky fast glue, which hopefully is going to stick it, and I've also stuck some more here. This is possibly going to take a couple of applications because, yeah, it's not that great to adhere, and again, it would be nice if I should have done this when I'm not in such a rush. However, I do have some equipment which is going to come to my aid, certainly on that one, which is, you guessed it, clips. So I'm going to clip it in place, and that will mean that it stays roughly where I want it to be. And that glue dries quite quickly, so within, hopefully this evening, I can come back over to this again, and I can dress it with some more flocks to fill the hedge out slightly. So we'll just put a couple of clamps along this, just to hold it to the fence, like that. Make sure it doesn't blow away when I'm moving it. And on that one, I'll put a little bit of a weight, which I've just got out of reach over here, so we're going to get that. Just weight that down gently, and that there will hold that in place. And that will look quite good when it's done. I will be able to scatter a load of flocks and what have you over that and fill it out to make it look like a proper bush. So that's that section done. Next up is this fence. which I'm going to do in a slightly different technique. So when I was making my scatter stuff with using these scrubbing brushes, I tore the green off, and this one's quite a squatty old one, but that's actually quite perfect for what I want. I'm going to be putting in, again, this is bulky material, but I want it to be much more solid, so I'm going to use this instead. And I'm going to be bulking this up so that it goes, making sure not to show too much of the yellow, so that it goes over the top of this, and so that it has a like a bushy shape, which is going to be all the way along this fence. Now I know this obviously means I'm hiding the fence, but that's what I want. So I'm going to be bulking it up like this, so there, and then I'll be able to, again, in the same way as before, cover that, or same way as on over here, but to cover that with flocks, and it will look really nice with some good flocks. So I'm going to look to stick that down, something like that, and then I'll get another one. And I'll be putting that a little further up as well, potentially up that fence. So I'm going to have a play around with that, work out how I'm going to stick it down, and I'll bring you back when I've got that nailed. There we are, I got that working eventually. It was a bit fiddly. I'm glad I didn't have the camera going. I used super glue, which I know almost is cheating, but it's worked very well. It's secured it in place enough, and later on I'll be able to put some flock over that and bathe that in a lot of watered down PVA, and it will become quite solid. This is still drying, and now I'm going to start to look at this bit here along the front. Now, if we have a look at the picture, which I'll hold up in front of the camera, but probably won't be able to see it very well, you can see that there are some flowers and plants growing along the front. And so what I'm going to be doing is using some of these from Serious Play as well, some of this flock, some of these, tufts, and I'm going to put them all along the front. But as part of that, I'm also going to mix in some of this stuff here, which is also from Serious Play, which is like foliage and that sort of thing. And finally, if I can get it to stick, I do struggle to get this to stick sometimes, I'm going to make use of my own tufts that I've made as well, that are here. So using PVA glue as per usual, and all other manner of sticky stuff, I'm going to get stuck into that. Woohoo! I did a pun. First of all, however, I'm going to tidy up, because if you keep your workplace tidy, you know where everything is all the time, and also stuff doesn't get broken or lost. So I will turn some music on, and I will get to doing along the front of the two gardens, which is the next thing to do. Cracked on a little bit without the camera going, which is a bit naughty, I know, but I'm pleased with what I'm doing, so I'll invite you to see it. I was just a bit of an experiment, and I really shouldn't be doing so much stupid on camera. It doesn't make me look very clever, but I'm sure you learn just as well as I do. However, this is working, so let's show you what's happening. So what I've done is I've got the scrubbing brush that I put on earlier, the scourer, and bent it over. That dried. I've then used some of the WWS fast tack glue, and I have sprinkled over the kind of foliage type stuff, and then finally I've put some of my own homemade yellow scatter over the top of that, just to look like flowers. And along the front I finished that process off. You will have noticed I did two techniques. This side didn't work as well, this side's worked better. So this side I flooded it too much. I put PVA down, then tried to stick things on, and then flooded it with PVA. That's just too much. And the tufts didn't actually stick all that well onto the PVA. So on this side, what I've done is I put no PVA down first, then added the flowers, and then put in the scatter, and then only added in the PVA where I want, where I've put the additional scatter, and that does seem to be working a lot better. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is go to dressing the rest of the garden and looking at the, first of all at these two windows here. So I'm going to get down my grey and I'm going to paint that grey, and then I'm going to, when that dries, which won't take long, I'm going to do a dry brush over it with a silver, and we'll see how that looks. I need that done because I need to start to put the plant pots, and I need to build forwards, otherwise I'll be getting all my hands in the way and stuff. But while that's drying, I'm going to make a little bench to sit here out of wood, so you'll join me for that as well. So I'm going to do that painting, and then I'll be back when I have something else to show you. The little table that I'm looking to make is this one you can see just back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these matchsticks with no matchstick end on, and some coffee stirrers, the traditional methods. And I'm not going to do it too fancy because, well, I'm not that clever, and also I want it to be quite quick to make. So I'm going to roughly work out height, which is going to be about yay. And then I'm going to put my little guide in on my chop it. Taking a risk using this at night with Rosie asleep in the room next door, but I think I only need to do 4 of these, so the noise hopefully won't be too bad cutting these up. 2, 3, 4, that'll be close enough. So that's going to be the legs. And what I'm going to do as well is get another matchstick. And so the idea will be that it'll have the 4 legs and it'll have a raft, which will be this in half roughly. There we are. And what will happen is I'll have those like that. Let's make sure actually they are the same length. That wasn't quite in half, but that is the size I want, so that's fine. This chop it makes things so easy. There we are, so that's fine. So we've got our rough width. They're going to go like that. Some lengths of coffee stirrer are going to be glued over the top, and then the legs will come in just 90, so attached both to this, to the inside though, both to this cross piece and also to the top. So what I'll do here is I will take the ends off. Actually, you know what? Let's waste not, want not. Let's make use of these that I've got very handily pre-cut in here. So these already have the ends off, and indeed I already have some that have been split down a bit to make them look a bit more rustic. So what I'll do is I'm going to quickly grab the glue, and I'm going to work out a dimension on this, and then I will cut the 2 edges and then fill in the middle, and that's how I'm going to do it. So I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I have my pencil as well so I can mark. So the length I want it is going to be roughly that long. So what I'll do is I'll cut that, and then put my guide in at the length I want. There we are. So now I can cut them all the same length really easily. And I'm being lazy, so I'm using super glue. So what I'll do is I'll put a little dot of super glue on one end there, and then like so. And then in the same way, a little dot of super glue here on the other one, and then push that into place. There we are. And what I'll also do is get myself a straight edge. I know. Let's use Rosie's Hobbit Hole. And I'll push them up so they're at a straight edge and they're going to look well. There we are. So what we'll keep doing now is cutting more lengths like that and gluing them in. While we wait for the little table to dry, which isn't actually looking all that positive right now, but we'll come back to that later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work forwards. Like I said, I'm happy with how those windows are looking now, so I'm going to work forwards, putting some planters and plant pots on the windowsill, and then coming forwards and dressing the garden on this side. So we're going to use a little bit of super glue, and the first one I'm going to put in, they're going to be these tiny little pots, and they're just going to go on this windowsill here. So we'll get our little tweezers. Actually, I'm going to use PVA because I think that's going to do a better job and be slightly less irritating to work with. So I'm just going to dip this into some PVA, which I have over here. A little bit of PVA on the bottom. And there. Doesn't go our little plant pot. See, I show you all my failures, don't I? You don't have to wonder whether I fail. There we are. Now it's on the plant, on the windowsill. There we are, we have a little plant on the windowsill. First one. So we have another one in another pot here, which is basically going to go next to it. So I'll pull that one out. Dip that one in some glue over here. Boop. And put that over here. There we are. Our first two plant pots. Now the table is actually going to go just here in front of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on these tulips that I've got here, and I'm going to put them down at Angela's suggestion, which I think is a cracking idea, and it's just going to go all along the edge of the path. So we'll open this packet, and I'll do them the same way as I did with the cabbages. And I'll get my bradawl out, which is getting a lot of use, dig a hole and plant it using PVA. These are beautiful as well, they're really lovely. So let's get on with this. I'll pop some music on while I'm doing these. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is put some of these other things in. So I have these absolutely beautiful brick planters that I got off eBay. They're actually stunning, I'm blown away by them. Actually made out of air dry clay from the feels of it. So we're going to try to stick those down, and these are going to go by the front door because they deserve to go by the front door. So we're going to put one on this side, like so. And I've got another one. I'm actually going to use my brush to put the PVA on, it a bit easier. Put the other one down here. Here we are. So that really dresses up that front door very nicely. Let me see if I can zoom that in properly for you. It's not that greatly lit at this stage because I've got my light in general not pointing in, but I think that you'll be able to see that that entrance is really starting to take shape. Very, very nice indeed. So the next thing that I've got, zoom back out again for a little bit, are some more flowering pots. Now some of these are going to go on the table, which by the way has failed completely, which is a shame. But some of them are also going to be scattered around. I also do need to not forget about the neighbours, but I'm not worried about it at the moment. We're going to get Rosie's done first. These are all looking good. That will dry nicely. This is going to be fine. When that finally dries, it will look good. Hopefully it won't be too white. That is done well. Let me zoom in over there. So that hedge, that far hedge, if I don't make you too seasick doing this, that far hedge is done. Just take the clips off there. So yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a think now about the next things to do for both of these gardens, and then I'll be back in a minute. I think the next thing to do is to dress up the bank a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these blue flowers. I'm just going to mix it up a bit and put blue flowers on the top. And there will also be some longer weeds. So these are also from Serious Play. I'm not going to bother with PVA, as we saw before. It does seem to maybe affect the glue these guys use. These will be secured in place by the final spray that I'll have to do, which will probably now be after Rosie's birthday as it happens, because I just won't get time. But I'm just going to scatter these in here to add a little bit of colour to the top and differentiate this wild area from the kempt garden below. Okay, I'm happy enough with that. It's a bit of a random scatter, but as I build other things up, it will start to really come together, I'm sure. I'm back after a little more dressing, and what I've done is I've gone and taken some of these pre-made trees, which I bought off a guy. When I remember his name, I'll pop it in the description below. And I'm going to put a fruit tree back here. There we are. Again, scoop up some PVA. Drop it in. There we are. Nice orange tree. Not sure if that's typical for the Shire, but still. And I've got this lovely flowering tree here, which I'm also going to put in place. And I think I'm going to put this down in here, which is going to be next to where the next to the entrance. Now you can see that these actually come on a base, and I'm able to twist and remove it from the base relatively easily. I could do the other one. I can't do this one. Having said that, I might leave that on the base and then blend it in. I think that might actually look even nicer, because it looks like it's got a little bit more of a kind of like scenic or prepared area around it. So we're going to just glue that in. Get a PVA on the bottom and glue it in. And when that's dry, try and get that in a flat spot. There we are. When that's dry, I'll come in and blend that tree in. Now those two just add some lovely height, and they really do set the whole thing off. Now I know that they're not prototypical, but frankly I'm happy with how they look. I really want it to be striking, and I think that Sam, being Sam, would make that kind of a decision to have a tree there growing with nice flowers on it. And I've just crouched down, which you can't see because I'm off camera, and I'm looking at it from eye height, and it really is starting to come on well. I'm very, very, very pleased. Pretty soon I'm going to have to start painting those animals up and get them in place as well, the rabbits and the sheep and the goat. So yeah, this is coming on. I'm going to stop now and have another think, and I'll be back shortly. I think I've just reached the end of what I can usefully do with the energy that I have right now this evening, and it is looking a lot better than it was. I'm very pleased. However, what's happened is I've just started to try to look at these beautiful Edward photo etch sunflowers, and it is so daunting that I think I just got to stop, because I will make a mistake. I don't want to. I'll do this when I'm feeling more awake and less tired than I am now. I'll do that tomorrow. The instructions seem quite clear, but I'm just looking at them going, oh, that is just so out of my league, and it's very, very daunting, and sometimes you just got to take a break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to settle down with a paintbrush, and I'm going to put some paint on the sheep and on the goat and on the rabbits, and I'm going to leave that now all to dry, and then before the end of the night, so I've got a bit of a interview, can you believe it, with the podcast out of the frying pan, which I'm really looking forward to. Got that in about half an hour. So when that's finished, then I'll come back and I'm going to put some dark brown, this with the wooden dark brown that I've used to paint all the wood, and I'm going to paint the edge of the diorama before I go to bed tonight. So I'm just going to put paint on that so that I can finish it off and get the plaque on. But I'm going to leave that for now. It's going to be left for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, so that all of that glue can have a good chance to dry, and then I will put that colour around the edge, and that will be me for this evening. I may or may not be back this evening on this footage. I'm quite tired, as you can probably hear in my voice, so I think it's time to call it a night largely. I've just finished a really interesting interview for the Out of the Frying Pan podcast, which was great fun to do. And now, just before I go to bed, I have one last thing that I want to do to this, which is painting the rim, so that I can paint it now and then paint it in the morning and then varnish it, and it'll be done. The rest of this is drying nicely. There's a few issues. This is very white here, which is a bit of a shame. I may end up having to re-static grass that, but that's not the end of the world. And then some of the flock has fallen off of this, and I need to seal everything, obviously quite desperately need to seal everything, but that can wait till the morning, I think. What I'm going to do is paint the rim. So I'm going to get myself set up and get that done, and I'll show what it looks like when I have finished. First coat done, and I think that looks really nice, and it's going to look brilliant once it's got the plaque on the front. So I said I was going to leave the sealing until tomorrow, but I think I'm actually going to do at least a little bit of it, certainly over this bit, which is quite loose, to try and get that dried so I can add another layer where it's not stuck quite well. This is concerning me down the front, like I mentioned. If I zoom in a bit, you can see that that is very white and pale, that the grass here. The glue is not going clear, but I'll leave that overnight and hopefully it will clear by tomorrow. The first thing I'm going to do before I do anything, however, is on this tree here, on the fruit tree, it's a bit stark and it's not all that secure. So I'm going to use the fast tack glue, if I can get that to focus. I'll zoom back out, apologies. The fast tack glue, and I'm going to use the dirt, which is the same dirt as I've got on the track, and I'm just going to put a bit of fast tack glue in there and then sprinkle it around. So I'll get that done now, and then I will do the sealing, and then I will go to bed. It's the day before and I'm really close to finishing, so what I'm going to be doing is working at my desk. I've finished work for the day. I've got some editing to do, so I'm going to do that again. I've got painting to be done, and the first thing to paint is this little table, which caused some swearing, I can tell you, yesterday. So I'm going to just put the boar, the pine lac, the lighter stain on it, and then leave it to dry, and then turn it over and do the other side. So that's what that's going to be, and then I can later on I can darken it or lighten it or whatever I want to do, but I think the pine is, looking at the pictures, is what it's going to be. So yeah, a little bit of pine lac, and then when that's done, I have my animals, which I never did get to do last night. I was planning on doing these animals last night, but it got to 1 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, I was just way too tired to even think about it, so I went to bed. So yeah, so I'm going to start painting these animals. But yeah, so that's that done. I will do more of that again when it's dried and do the other side. I'm not going to rush it. I have got time. So yeah, now on with the animals. I will invite you along for that as I'm doing it. First up, I'm going to do the sheep, because that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So what I've got is Vallejo Off-White, which is 004 or 70820. Why do they have two colours? If anyone can tell me that, I'll be very grateful. Why do they have two colours? I'm just going to paint that all over for now, because I'll come back and highlight anywhere that I want to highlight. Might give it a little bit of a darker face or something, but for now, in my head at least, and certainly in Rosie's head, sheep are white, aren't they? So why paint them any other colour? Certainly they're sometimes kind of a bit dirty and rubbishy around the back where they're not very clean, but for the large part they're white, and we're not going for brutalist reality, are we? So there we are, so that's that one painted. These don't take very long because they're simple, so yeah. It's going to add a lot of interest to the diorama, and that's what it's all about. There we are. Oh, I dropped it a bit. So there we are, we have a white sheep pretty much done. So I'll let that dry quickly and I will come back in a second when I pick up what I'm going to do next. Probably the little bunny rabbits. Next I'm going to do the goat because it's the other big animal and I've got the larger brush to hand. And I'm going to do that in beige brown, Vallejo beige brown, which is 70875. And again, while I might do some highlighting or some patching, I'm going to paint the whole thing in one colour just initially because that will make it a bit easier for me to cope with. Of course, I need to not paint the horns because the horns will not be beige brown, they will be ivory, so I'll come back and do them another time, but we'll quickly whack that over there again. I'm not going to win any prizes for my painting at the best of times, and certainly not when I feel like I'm in a hurry. These are female goats. They're pretty good sculpts actually. I'll try to remember to put a link up. I put a link on the previous. I think I put a link when I bought them. I'll try to remember to put a link up. There we are. One goat. Might darken that, but I can do that with Nuln Oil and with washes. That's a good undercoat. So now I'm going to work out what colour I want to do the rabbits is. We now have the rabbits. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to paint one of them chocolate, or maybe one or two of them chocolate, which is 70872 from Vallejo. And I'm going to do some of the others, the off-white with the black grey. So there'll be 2 brown and 2 black and white, and that's my plan. So I'm going to get stuck into that. The goat is looking very nice. It probably needs another coat or maybe some different colours, but it is, I'm very pleased with it. And the sheep just needs a grey wash and that'll be done. So those are very close to finished. So let's get on with that. While I'm doing that, I'll put some music on, and it won't take me very long, but yeah. I won't talk the hind legs of a donkey. I do have some donkeys actually that I could put into this, but I decided against it because I want to use them for something else. So let's get the chocolate ones done, and then I'll do little black and white ones. Oh, that didn't work very well, did it? Look, that's obviously been left for too long and wet. I need to start looking after my paints better. Let that to dry for a bit, and now I'm going to come back in with the off-white on the tails of the little brown bunnies, because that's one thing that bunnies do have, is white tails. There we are, that's cool, little white tails. And what I'm now going to do is come in with the off black, or with the dark grey, and I'm going to put some patches on each of these little white rabbits. There we are. I think they look like rabbits. I hope they look like rabbits. So that's that done. I'm going to let them dry before I pop them onto the diorama, but they're pretty much ready. I'm now going to look back at these two. So I'll gather together my washes and get started on them. The first thing that I'm going to do is put Agrax Earthshade onto the goat, just to bring out the texture and darken it up a little bit. That should now be dry enough, so I'm going to go in with my brush, and I'm going to get that to be dry brush, proper dry brush. So traditionally make sure you do it so that almost nothing's coming off. There we are. And then we'll go in on the sheep and we'll do a nice dry brush to bring it back out the highlights and raise it back up to be a little bit whiter where we want it to be. So I'm happy with the face actually being a bit darker, but I do want to bring the rest of it up. And there we are. So that is something that I'm pretty happy with. What I'm now going to do is take all these things over, which I'm ready to put onto the diorama, and don't forget that does include Rosie and Sam and their daughter, and I'm going to stick it on the diorama. What an exciting moment. So let's get ourselves over there and get that done. While my mother's visiting, I'm going to try and be sociable a bit and not lock myself away in room 13 so much, and so I've put the table in the lounge where we're going to sit in the evenings, and I'll be doing some miniature painting. The plan is to spend most of this time miniature painting and not doing so much terrain because, well, I've missed doing the miniatures. But what I'm doing right now is painting the letters inside the plaque for the Hobbit Hole. And to do this, I'm using these things that are called watercolour pens, which I've never heard of, but Angela has suggested I make use of, and they're working quite well. I've just managed to get through the first half of the plaque, giving them a go, and what I thought I'd do is bring you all in here and point the camera down and you can see how that works. So they've got a reservoir at the end and they have a brush tip, very similar to any normal paintbrush, but it means that you can keep your paint very wet if that's what you wish. Now I don't actually want to use them in that way, I'm just using them because they're quite fine tipped and they're being making it relatively easy for me to get into the edges of each of these letters that have been scribed out. So yeah, I'll point the camera down and put some music on and you can watch me do this. And the battery is running out, but I'm sure that you've had enough watching me, 8 minutes or so of clip. So yeah, I'm going to carry this on with this, finish this off, and I will show you what it looks like when it is done. And so we come to it, what I suppose is almost the final dressing, and I feel a little bit emotional, which I suppose is also understandable because this has been a very awesome build for me to do from beginning to end, and particularly for the reason, or maybe specifically for the reason, that I am sat here on the eve of Rosie's first birthday and I'm about to glue Rosie onto the Hobbit Hole that I made for her first birthday. So hey, I also have a goat, a sheep, 4 rabbits and some more pots, some more plant pots. What I've realised, and this is going to miss because I'm an idiot and I completely forgot, so I'm not going to get time now, is I forgot to paint up the plant pots that came with Rosie, and so I'm going to leave space for them to go on at least on that table. So I might try and get them painted tonight. They are primed, I just need to actually paint them up, so maybe I will be able to, we'll see. I'm going to go ahead now though and start sticking these final items down. So we have a goat, and said goat is going to go here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is very simply, I have some PVA on my little dinner plate. I'm going to get a sufficient amount of PVA, and I'm going to set said goat down, and hopefully it'll dry there nicely. Now we have the sheep. Here we are, and if you can see, that now has actually got black legs and a little bit of black on its ears, or dark grey. The reason for that, you probably couldn't see it anyway, you'll see on the pictures, is Angela said sheep have black legs, so that's why I did some black legs. And little sheepy fella is going to go here and stand looking through the fence. So same old way, bit of PVA, put him down. Now we come to the rabbits, and the idea here, I suppose I really shouldn't film this because the idea here is that Rosie should be looking for these and trying to find them as a bit of fun in a few years when it's the sort of thing that she might be into. But hey, maybe she'll never watch this film, or maybe she will and then she'll forget. So I'm actually going to hide one back here which is on its way over to the vegetable patch. Obviously not where you want to have a rabbit. And I'm going to tuck one on the top, at least one on the top. And he's going to be kind of up here. Using the tweezers, but I actually need to press in a bit more. Might need a bit more glue than that. There we are. There's that little fella up there. And then I'm going to put one down here on the front, which is going to be nice and easy to see. I won't bother with the tweezers. He's going to be kind of sat in there near the flowers. And then we've got the last brown one. And where are we going to put the last brown one? I should really have taken, asked questions and got some of you to suggest positioning for these. Shouldn't I? That would have been quite good fun. A little bit of audience participation. But hey, he's going to go in this garden here. He's going to tuck in there, just the other side of the fence. Ooh. He's going to fall over. I've tried to cut the pudding bases off as best as I could, but I've not done a very good job, which is probably why that's not working. So what I'll do is I'll take my little bradawl, which is rapidly becoming my wonder tool of the year, and I'll make a little bit of a dent where I want it to sit. Bit of PVA, and then the notch that's in the bottom still from the pudding base will sit into that dent. There we are, that's much better. Cool. So we've done the animals. We have a sheep, a goat, and 4 rabbits. Brilliant. Oh, this is so cool. Sorry, I'm getting emotional here. So now we're going to look at these little last few plants, though I might leave them off until I've painted these and see how that goes. So let's get on to the main event. We have Sam. Sam is going to be running along here. So what I've done is I've left some of the pudding base on, or some of the slaughter base in this case actually, so that I could actually sit him into the road and have him be solid. So he will fit in there. Needs to be a bit deeper so he fits a bit better. There we are, and then his back leg is there. Scientifically done. I probably should measure and do all sorts of stuff, but I think it'll be fine. Right, so let's just make sure. Right, bit deeper. I can always drop some more of the sand around if I need to. But that is very nearly good enough. A little bit wider. I could always cut that down a bit more actually. There we are. That is going to be fine. So Sam is zooming along towards his family, and who can blame him? What a wonderful family he has. As we all know, Sam was the true hero of Lord of the Rings. Never mind that. Melt, Frodo, Sam and only Sam. And what we're going to have is we're going to have little, what's her face? I learned her name, didn't I? And I've forgotten it again because I'm rubbish at names. She's going to be standing there. And then little Rosie is going to be standing in the doorway with a little hand kind of resting on her. So I've done the same thing with this one, because this one also had a metal slaughter base. So we'll dig a hole out there. Yeah. Make sure that fits. A little bit more. Tell you what, these bradawls are good. There we are. And then Rosie will stand next to her. Like so. Let's zoom that in so you can see a little easier. Let's lift that a bit. There we are. There we are, Sam coming into his family. So what we'll do is I'll get the PVA again. Now, unfortunately, Rosie's model comes from Forge Weld, and therefore was Forge Weld resin, and therefore is designed to come off the sprue very easily. So I haven't got anything which is actually going to be pinning her to the base. So if she comes off, I might have to pin her. But for now, that is perfect. I mean, look at that. There they are. There's little Rosie and the daughter. And up the road, there's Sam. That's so cool. I'm so happy. Okay, I am going to try and get some of these painted, and I'm going to leave these to dry, because the next process I need to do is varnishing the outside and varnishing the name badge. So I might do the name now, might varnish the name now actually. You don't need to see that, I've just got some clear lac to put on it, clear lacquer. Yeah, and then I will put some colours on these plants and you'll be able to see what that looks like. So yeah, populated. So what we have now is I'm going to paint these little things. I've got some pumpkins, some mushrooms, and those little flowers that I just mentioned. So I've gathered together a gaggle of paints over here, which I'm going to make use of. The German orange is for the pumpkins. I hope that's going to be correct. The cork brown is for the mushrooms, and then for the flowers I've got this array of colours. So Amarillo Luna, moon yellow, blue violet, flat red, and Andrea blue, and then a couple of different greens, uniform green and lime green. So I'm going to put some music on while I'm doing this and speed the video up. I'm going to actually be watching a YouTube video, and yeah, you can watch while I do this, and I hope that this is successful. Now that they're painted up, I'm going to stick them in. And I'm going to make use of the super glue gel, because that's going to be a slightly easier way to stick them down. And what I'm going to do is I'm first of all doing the mushrooms, which are a little bit fiddly. So I'm actually going to grab my, which I should have had on hand, shouldn't I? Up there, everything is nicely within reach of my hobby bench. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick these in, kind of in and around the garden. So I'm going to put one in here, or maybe even two in there. And then I'm going to put, yeah, because they're going to obviously be part of a feeding frenzy for the hobbits. So they do need to be reachable. There's one. Let's put a big one under there. So let's do that. This super glue gel is really annoying. It keeps coming, as they say. It doesn't stop. So you squeeze a little bit out, look down, and then all of a sudden you've got super glue everywhere. So there we are, a couple of nice mushrooms in there. That looks well, doesn't it? They're nice. Maybe I can fit another one in at the back, one of these small ones. Might need to get off my backside to situate this. But super glue gel is a great thing. It makes it a lot easier to glue things like this down because it has a little bit of structure to itself. Right. Come in from that side and go in underneath there. There we are. Some nice mushrooms for Sam to cook. Couple more maybe. I'm going to come back to them. I have a few more, as you can see. So now we have these beautifully painted little pots. So I'm going to cut a couple of these off and stick them carefully on to the potting table. So I'll do that with PVA. There we are, there's one. I'm going to stick the wall on actually. That's what she's been working on while she's waiting for her Sam to turn up, to come home. I'm going to put one on the floor, and then I'm going to fill the rest of that table up with other items. So we'll have one down here, there, and then I have these tiny little ones that are in the packet. You can go about there. There. So let me just turn that a bit so you can see that a little better. That table is now looking rather lovely, I think you'll have to agree. And what we now have are the pumpkins. So again, let me move the camera a little bit. It's going to come down a bit to this front corner. And what I am considering doing is, I don't know if you can see here, I have a little bit of kind of stuff. And I was thinking of having them going, so our neighbours, when they're growing pumpkins, they have them all hanging all over the edge of their fence, and I was thinking of doing something like that. So what I'm going to do now is cut these pumpkins off of their sprue and then start to situate them. That's a lot of pumpkins, that might even be too many. So what I was thinking of doing was having a pumpkin stuck on there and then having this kind of coming up to it. Now this might be a bit too much for me to do at this stage, and I may want to consider leaving this for a bit and coming back to it. So what I might do for now is pile a couple of pumpkins up by the door, which is the other thing I was going to do, just because they'll have been picked. So I'm going to do that now. Put a few pumpkins, maybe put some around here as if they've been harvested. So I'll just get some PVA, just drop them in place. That's really nice decoration. So I'm going to leave my idea with the vines for now, just because this is going to be done by tomorrow, which it is done basically. I have one more thing of flowers to put on, one more of these little things. You couldn't see that at all, that was terrible. One more of these little things, which I need to decide where that's going to go, and I obviously haven't yet done the sunflowers. Just too panicky. But apart from that, that's done. And I can always come back and add little bits and pieces, like a gate and a gate and a gate, which I just haven't got to. But we're really getting somewhere now. So, yeah, very pleased. Very pleased indeed. So pop that down on the neighbours. I'm actually going to use super glue gel to put that in place, because I think that will hold it a bit easier, a little bit better. Bit of super glue gel, stick it down next to their door, and we're done. So the rest of it I'll tidy away so that I don't lose anything, and then when that's all dried in a few minutes, I'm going to have to do the varnishing, but I won't do that on camera, and then I will show it all off to you when it is completely finished and the sign is stuck on. I'm so stoked. And now we come to the final bit, the final build. I'm about to And now, on Rosie's birthday no less, I come to the final section. I'm about to stick on the plaque on the front of the display board. So I'm going to point the camera down now and get the PVA glue out and stick that in place, and then this build is done. So here we are, the board is on its side, on its back, and I have measured out exactly halfway. You can see a little knock here. So what I'm going to do is get some PVA and PVA the two sections, then spread that PVA so it's a thin, smooth along the back. Then the first one can be very carefully put on, and then smooth. I might put a bit more PVA on that actually, it's been a little bit too frugal there. There we are. Stick that on in place, and then this wouldn't be a beard clipper build with a whole load of clamps, so I'm going to clamp it in place very carefully. And there we have it. I'll let that to dry, and then it's done. Oh yes, oh yes. Wow, what an epic video, an hour and a half long, and hopefully you'll have watched it all, but I wouldn't blame you if none of you ever get to see me sat here saying this, because that was long. It was a busy week. I had forgotten how much I did at the beginning of the week before I cracked on with Rosie's Hobbit Hole as my materials arrived. And what a thing, I mean, it looks amazing. There's some photographs that will be following this to show what it looks like now, because I think that would be nice for you to see. And obviously there'll be more detailed pictures later on in the real completed build with me, which is going to be another epic. So thank you so much for watching if you reached this far, and if you do have any comments, as I say, do leave them in the comments below, please do. I'm always very pleased to hear from people watching these videos, and I do attempt to reply to every single one. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed, please click that button, and don't forget to ding the bell as well, so that whenever I do one of these epics or one of the shorter videos, which is more normal, you'll be told by YouTube whenever they decide to tell you that the video has gone live. I'm going to raise my humongous cup of tea that is full of fresh tea, which probably is going to be too hot for me to drink, but give it a go, because frankly you deserve it having got this far. Oh, that's better. That's my first cuppa of the day. I was up until 2 AM this morning editing. It's now just after 7, and I'm back to put the music on and do this clip, and then get this vlog published on the Sunday and keep to my schedule. So, as always, thank you so much for watching. Beard Clipper.